I'd like to call to order the Middletown City Council meeting for October 20th, 2020. If we could start with a moment of meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Skank, you please call the roll for us.
Ms. Vittori.
Here.
Ms. Nenny.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Mulligan.
Here.
Mayor Condrey.
Here. And just for clarification purposes, Ms. Vittori is joining us via Zoom today, so she is present for the meeting. Hi, Amy. Okay, let's start with citizen comments. Do we have any this evening?
No one turned in any calls.
Okay, no citizen comments this evening. Council comments. Let's start with our remote member, Ms. Vittori. Do you have any council comments this evening?
Thank you. I just wanted to urge everyone to wear masks. The numbers are going up. We've got a positive case at my son's school. It's actually a teacher, and so his entire class is quarantined. So we've seen the cases at the high school as well. So I know we're all very tired of the masks, but I think the coronavirus doesn't care if we're tired of the masks. And hopefully if everyone can buckle down these next couple of weeks, I think we'll be able to push forward without further shutdowns and issues. So I just hope everyone can be mindful, wash your hands, and all of those things we've been doing for so long. So hopefully we don't do them too much longer. And thank you to the health department. I know Jackie and her team have been hit with a lot in the past couple of days as these numbers rise. It's a tireless and sometimes thankless job. So I wanted to give my appreciation to the health department. And that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Mulligan.
Thank you, Your Honor. No comments tonight.
Okay. Mr. Moon.
Thank you, Your Honor. Amy, I hope you're on a beach somewhere, but I suspect you are not. So thanks for joining us. Wanted to extend my condolences to the family of Tom Blake. Certainly lost a pillar of the community recently, and certainly sat at this dais for many, many years, and he will be greatly missed. And also just wanted to urge my fellow citizens not to forget to vote here. The election is coming up in roughly 2 short weeks, I believe. So vote early. You can go down to Fairfield Township, I guess it is. I guess it's not in Hamilton anymore, and vote early, or you can request an absentee ballot if you want to avoid the lines on Election Day. So please don't forget to exercise your right to vote. And that's all I have, Your Honor.
Ms. Nitty.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to Chief Burke and the rest of the staff who were involved in the bike helmet giveaway. It looked like a really successful event and a really great thing that they did for the community. So thank you.
Great. And I made a slip up in election season last year where I said vote early and often, and I was joking, but it really wasn't taken too well. So I'd encourage you to vote once and only once, which is definitely a good thing, but definitely make sure you get your vote out. And something else I wanted to mention, a community event. I believe the Great Miami Riverway, there's a cleanup being organized on Saturday from 9 to noon outside of Babs Kayaking, just along the riverfront there. So it'd be great to get out and help us clean up our riverway. And that's all I have this evening. Mr. Palahniuk, do you have a city manager reports?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, good evening. Just a couple of things I wanted to mention. Currently, the survey for our comprehensive plan, which we're really asking for input from city stakeholders and anybody who wants to participate within the community, is available on the city's website as well as social media. It is on the site and available and will be through October 30th. So if you'd like to have input into the city's comprehensive plan, that is available now. We urge anybody who is interested to please look for that and fill out the survey. Also wanted to mention that had an opportunity this week via Zoom to meet for the first time with representatives of Cleveland Cliffs, the owners of AK Steel, long legacy company with a very long and successful history in the community. able to meet the Senior Vice President of Steel Mills along with their corporate relations person as well as their government relations. Had a really nice conversation, just a kind of introductory meeting. Talked a lot about, their business and how it's going, and talked about the community and how we valued their partnership. We were given an update as well as of October 1st as to their employment. They currently employing 2,243 people here in Middletown at the mill and another 72 at the R&D facility. So nice to hear that. Developed a good beginning working relationship, and we look forward to ultimately meeting them in person and having a tour and being able to continue that relationship long term. Beyond that, we are doing our public safety budget presentation to conclude the meeting, so I will reserve the remainder of my time for that. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Ms. Skank, will you please present the consent agenda for us?
For consideration this evening to approve the city council minutes from September 15th, 2020, to receive and file board and commission minutes from the Library Board of Trustees, August 18th, and to receive and file oaths of office for Christopher Arias, Jake Berger, Ryan Kennedy, Tyler Monahan, and Chris Schwitowski, to confirm the personnel appointment of Michelle Groves to the position of maintenance worker in the Department of Public Works and Utilities, Water Maintenance Division, to adopt the updated definitions of deteriorating areas for use in CDBG program administration, and receive and file maintenance and performance bonds submitted by Sawyer's Mill Project 1, LLC, guaranteeing public improvements constructed as part of Sawyer's Mill Sections 3 and 3A subdivision.
I move to approve the issues and actions set forth in the consent agenda.
Second.
Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Ms. Vittori.
Yes.
And Ms. Cohen will be presenting the legislation for us this evening.
Yes, ma'am. Prior to getting started, I do have two matters that we are asking you to consider as an emergency this evening. So it asks for a motion to waive charter requirements for 2 readings and 30 days to enactment regarding Ordinance O 2020-53, as well as Ordinance O 2020-54.
I move that the charter provision requiring readings on 2 separate days be waived and that ordinance number O 2020-53 and -54 be declared emergencies and read one time only.
Second.
Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Ms. Vittori.
Yes.
First matter we have this evening is a second reading for ordinance number O 2020-50, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Polydyne Incorporated for the purchase of polymer for use at the water reclamation facility for the year 2021.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Any comments from council or anyone? Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll for us?
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Ms. Vittori.
Yes.
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Next matter is ordinance O 2020-51, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing an amendment to the contract with Air Products for the purchase of carbon dioxide for use at the water treatment plant for the year 2021. This is also here for a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second. Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
I'm sorry.
The mayor did.
Okay.
Oh, and are there any comments before we do that?
With a mask, it's hard to tell.
I know.
All right.
I'll mouth it for you next time. Okay. With no comments, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Ms. Vittori.
Yes.
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Third matter on the agenda is ordinance O 2020-52, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing purchases of asphalt by the city purchasing agent in 2021. Here for a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Any comments from council or staff on this one? Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Vittori.
Yes.
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Fourth matter this evening is Resolution R 2020-30, a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit an application to the Ohio Public Works Commission for Project Year 35, requesting funding for the resurfacing and reconstruction of various streets throughout the city, restoration of curbs, gutters, driveway aprons, sidewalks deemed defective by the city, installation or repairs to handicap ramps, catch basins, and drainage, to enter into agreements for such funding.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Any comments from council or staff? Okay, Ms. Skank, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Ms. Vettori.
Yes.
Fifth matter this evening is Ordinance O 2020-53, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Ohio Valley Painting Company Incorporated to paint the city jail and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Any comments on this one?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, members of council, in this case, this contract would allow us to get the jail repainted, and because we would be using antibacterial paint, it will get fully funded under the CARES Act. So we'll use general fund and then reimburse ourselves with the CARES Act. This is an emergency because, as you know, these funds have to be spent with a deadline of December 30th of 2020. So as a result, we want to make sure that this gets done rapidly so that it becomes fully eligible. And the cost is $147,500. Ohio Valley Painting is the lowest and best bid available to be able to do this with the specialty of using the antibacterial paint. So we recommend it for adoption.
Mr. Palaniuk, can you remind me why, I think this went out to bid last year, why it wasn't actually painted last year? We're using last year's bids, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm going to ask either Jake or the police representative why that occurred last year.
We intended to paint it last year, but when we received the bids were higher than anticipated, so we did not have the money budgeted to do it.
Okay. I'm glad we can use CARES Act for it then this year. Great. And it's antibacterial now, so even better. Any other comments? Okay, Ms. Skank, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Ms. Vettori.
Yes.
Next matter is Ordinance O 2020-54, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with DeBra-Kuempel for the installation of Trane variable air volume boxes and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
I had a comment about this one. I don't have the copy in front of me, but it looked like we said there were no alternatives to this particular HVAC solution. That seemed a little odd to me. Is there a reason why? That if anyone can comment about that.
I'm not certain, but I'd like to make a few comments on just this item. This, again, similar to the last item, is our opportunity to take advantage of CARES Act funding. So by installing these variable volume air boxes to our HVAC system on the second and third floor of City Hall, it's allowing us also to make some remodeling that are allowing some of our staff to be more distanced appropriately, consistent with CDC guidelines and regulations, and also assuring that the air movement within those areas where we're remodeling are again going to have a better chance to protect them. So in this case, it's a cost of $36,214. Will be fully reimbursed by the CARES Act funding. Has to be completed by the deadline of December 30th, 2020. I think perhaps some of the reason for saying that there isn't an alternative is, given the CARES Act funding, the speed at which we have to complete this, anything else would basically mean that we wouldn't be able to make this reimbursable through those funds.
Any other comments? Okay, Ms. Skank, you please call the roll for us.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Ms. Vettori.
Yes.
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Item number 7 is Resolution R 2020-31, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio, for the period ending December 31st, 2020, and declaring an emergency. This involves the UDAG Fund. I believe there's no action requested this evening until November 3rd.
Mr. Pelenick, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, members of council, this item really is a precursor to the next series of items. It is adjusting the budget to recognize that in addition to the $40,000 that we did have in our budget, we're adding an additional $35,735.48 so that we're making all of these former UDAG grant monies available for these project grants. And in the next series of items, you will hear about the various project grants. So this acknowledges and changes the budget so that that is possible.
Do we have any, just because the rest of these are, I believe, all under the same topic, correct? We're not really varying. Do we have any insight into how the city informed business owners about the availability of these grants, the selection process, and how the applications came to be?
Yeah, and I will ask our Economic Development Director, Chriselle Lyons, to respond to that, please.
Hello.
Kind of, you gotta just stay with me. So essentially, all of these applications that come in, someone comes in, they're asking for assistance, we ask them to fill out a project intake form. The project intake form identifies the gap in financing and what type of assistance they're looking at. These were all originally small business grants between $1,000 and $10,000. At the same time, we were reviewing the budget and realizing that we had some available UDAG money. About $40,000 had been allocated every year for the budget since the 1970s. And most recently, the money had gone to DMI to do facade grants. They hadn't put any in place in the past few years. So I said, you know what, let's get this money out on the streets because it's not doing us any good sitting in my budget. So there was 4 applications that were open that were eligible for, that were all facade grants.
Is it possible to move your microphone closer?
Oh, sorry.
I see Ms. Vittori struggling, and I'm not sure.
Okay, sorry, can you hear me now?
Thank you.
Okay, so we scored them as they would be and rateably, all equally, so that we could get all 4 of the grants out. So it's a mix of job creation, it's a mix of the investment, the timing, but it's how we scored them all equally, how we would score like a small business grant. We just had more money to play with,
So how did businesses know that they were available in order to?
On our website, we have all the available incentives that are there, but typically people call us. So I've had Mayor Vittori, or excuse me, Ms. Vittori refer me for some businesses. DMI has referred me, SBDC, or else they're just calling for general information. So we've put it out on, I don't think we've put it out on social media, but we have it available when people are calling us.
I would like to see maybe a stronger collaboration with our communications department so we can get it out as well.
Well, we have a newsletter that's coming out, and that'll be coming out soon, probably within the next week. So.
And were they downtown Middletown only available, or is it available to the entire?
The UDAG funding was specifically for downtown redevelopment. So these were downtown redevelopment projects, facade projects. So we have funding still available for small business grants from $1,000 to $10,000 throughout the whole city. If someone's looking for a little more, we're creative. That's the one thing I can tell you about our department. We don't have a one-size-fits-all incentive because, as you know, businesses have unique needs. And because they have unique needs, we come up with unique ways to have solutions for them. So I think that's one of the best things that I can tell the business community is we have some larger grants. For example, the BMW store last year, if you remember, they had a larger grant because they were doing a larger investment with the purchase. Then we do our job creation incentive grants for companies that are hiring a substantial amount of employees and payroll. We have tax abatements, CRAs if they're downtown, enterprise zones if they're bigger. So we don't have a one-size-fits-all. That's why we do a project intake form. we identify the needs of the business and see how we can address those needs.
Okay, so if you were to basically tell Middletown businesses right now, should they want to get involved with economic development in some fashion to possibly receive assistance in any way, they should do what?
They should contact our office.
Via telephone? Or?
Via telephone, 513-425, oh my gosh, I don't even know my phone number, you just caught me off guard. 4587.
We can work.
Okay, we can work it out.
Shelby to
I'm
put
so
it out,
sorry,
I'm
you just
sure,
caught me
no
off guard.
problem.
We're on social media at Middletown BIZ. We do messaging through that way. But yeah, we're available. So that's, I mean, and really what we want people to do is we want people to start with the Economic Development Department, and then we triage them out, whether it's through the CIC or whether it's through maybe a grant through the Community Foundation or PACE financing. So we want them to start with us so that we can identify it, so that we can follow up on it and track it.
Is there a way for them to visit the city website and fill out a portal information?
No, I really like to
Out
talk
there?
to people.
Okay.
Yeah, because sometimes you're usually missing something. So I really like to have that touch. What I usually do is I usually talk to them first, and then I send them the project intake form, and then we review that intake form.
But they can find your phone number on the website,
Yes,
right?
they can.
Okay.
For the record, call 425-7941.
Thank you. And then we also have an economic development website, which is www.choosemiddletownoh.org. And that's where all of our incentives, maps, workforce development stuff, job openings, all of that's under one umbrella.
I had one other question, and it's in all of the incentives. It's one of the sections that says 60% of the ground floor must be occupied. I assume that's meaning to reflect the vacant property ordinance that we passed last fall in some capacity. Is that meaning we're only giving out the grants if the first floor is 60% in use at that time, or can you define that 60% for me?
That actually verbiage came through our law department, and I don't know if that was UDAG funding or specification, but the 60%, it's on.
And this is just a first reading. We can
Yeah.
follow up next week or in between. I'm just wondering what.
I believe it does have to do with the vacant property legislation. We can get you some more specific answers.
Okay, thank you.
But all of these are commercial properties. They don't have any
Right.
residential
Oh,
uses on the first floor, so.
Oh, okay, because I thought there was one that had residential use.
On the second floor,
Gotcha.
not first,
When we're talking about the use within the first floor only.
just the first.
That's, yes, and I'm wondering if that's a stipulation that it has to be in use at the time of disbursement of funds, or
No,
it
no,
just has
because
to be
these are,
zoned commercial?
yeah, no, yeah.
Okay,
So,
One of these buildings is vacant right now.
right.
The whole idea is to fix it so that we can fill it up.
so how do we go about measuring 60% use if we're waiving that for grant issuance? At what point does that have to,
Typically, there's like, in the agreement, there's 3 years that you review the agreement to make sure that you're in compliance with everything. But it's just, I think 60% is to make sure that it's for commercial use. It's really just to make sure that we're not giving money to residents to fix their homes up or anything like that. It's just to make sure that the money is for downtown redevelopment for commercial use.
Thank you.
And it's more than 50, so it's 60. I think that's where it comes from.
And have all of these recipients gone through the vacant property registration process and they've all?
Everyone is in
compliant?
compliance. Everyone has, if they had violations, they've been paid, or they're on a program. So if they had to go to the Historic Commission, they've received all of that. So we've done all of that.
Did you find that this program was a tool to get some of those owners in compliance with our vacant property registration?
I think it was honestly a tool for relationship building. As you know, I'm new to the city. I'm working here on my 7th month, and this was an opportunity, honestly, for me to work closely with some of our largest property owners, and one of the property owners that we've struggled with over the years. So I've developed a really good relationship with the people that are all involved in here, and I just think it's really just a relationship builder. It's trust. It's helping them. You know, they've told me, I've only received violations. I've never had economic development give me a plan or a way out. So my hope is that this is one way that we can develop relationships and we can encourage further investment.
Has the planning commission approved all of these projects?
They're not projects, it's facade improvements, so they wouldn't have to go to the planning commission.
Okay.
These are like new walls, new trellis, a new mural, things like that. So they're not planning commission, they're not redevelopment from the ground up projects.
Do they require historic approval, though?
Some of them did,
Okay.
and the ones that did received it.
When it comes to murals or art of any sort put around town, is there any sort of restrictions or regulations, or could anyone put, I mean,
I
I'm
think
going
if
extreme,
it's in
but
historic-ish, if it's in the historic area, yes. The mural that we funded was not, so.
right. Like, I'm going to the extreme just because I'm not sure where the line is drawn, but if someone wanted to
That's the
put
line right
something profane, for
Yes.
example, on the side of a building, is there a regulation in our city to keep them from doing that?
I would refer to Ashley for that, I have no idea.
Murals require zoning permits because they are a type of sign, so they would come through the planning and zoning department.
Okay, and do we know if the one that's being proposed has completed all of that?
I am not aware.
That would definitely be something I would be interested in as council before we approve funds to go to.
I mean, is that a question that Ashley could answer for us?
I'm sorry, what is the question?
Do you know that if there was a permit filed for the mural?
Which buildings?
Parrot Lofts?
There has not been, to my knowledge.
Okay. I mean, I'm of the inclination that we need to alter that. If there's been work performed that was done by a business owner without receiving permit prior to its completion, then I would say they're out of compliance. If we have a way to remedy that, or I don't know, but I will not be approving anything unless it's gone through that department, like we should do so. Or we can,
Just a thought, you can always approve things contingent on approvals, so that they don't have to come back to you if they then
Gotcha.
achieve those approvals.
okay.
So that's
I just didn't want
that's a means
council to be
that
put in a bad situation where we've
Yeah.
approved something
But
that,
that way you hold that entity accountable, but you still have a chance to approve it if it is contingent on those approvals being given.
okay. And I had one more just generic question about these projects in general. So they seem to have been projects that were already completed.
No, they're all in process right now.
Okay, so were they, because in my mind, I'm thinking of grants as to be incentives for people to kick projects off and get them going, and it seemed like these were already in the works. Is that the intent of these ones in particular, or?
Finish them up, to provide some financing to finish the projects that had maybe taken longer than anticipated, to develop relationships, and to also remind you these are not general fund dollars. These are federal fund dollars that have been in our accounts since the 1970s. They don't do us any good sitting in the budget, but hopefully the intent is to beautify downtown, to show revitalization, to show investment, and to create future growth.
And yeah, I'm all for trying to use dollars. I just want to make full transparency, since I know we also have a ballot item coming up that includes potentially helping our citizens see full transparency in Middletown. I want to make sure that they're aware, and we can have that conversation with the citizens as well as to where everything's going. So just to be clear, then all of these dollars are federal dollars, and they're not coming from the city's budget
Correct.
directly. Great. Sorry, I had so many questions on this one. I appreciate
It's
it
okay.
a lot.
That's why I'm here.
Just one comment for me. Ms. Lyons, thank you for your work on this, and I am reminded, as other council members, Councilmember Moon, last year when we considered the vacant property legislation, there was a little bit of pushback from property owners in this district about that ordinance. But I think this is a tangible example of how the city is at the table, willing to help and help their businesses, help their properties move it forward. So I'm happy to get these funds out and put them to use. So thanks for your work.
Thank you. I think these are prominent projects, and they are all willing to help partner with us for marketing and investment. So I think it's just a win for everybody.
Great. Thank you for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
Have any other comments on 7? Okay. Number 8 is ordinance O-2020-55, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a UDAG grant agreement with Triad Investment Group LLC for the property located at 1126 Central Avenue and declaring an emergency. Again, no action requested until the 3rd.
I'm going to go ahead and, does anyone want to make any comments about any of these? Because if not, I'll just have Susan continue to read through all of them since they are.
I actually have one comment. So in review, we discovered that there's a typo in ordinance 55. And that typo is that in the legislation, it says 10,500. In the attachment, it says 11,000. In the staff report, it says 11,000. So it's simply a typo, and when that comes back to you for approval at the next meeting, that typo will be corrected. So it's 11,000, just like the staff report says, and just like the attachment says. So I just want to make that clarification that we are aware of it, and we're going to get it straightened out before the next meeting when you actually vote on it.
Thank you.
My only comment regarding this specific numerical ordinance is that in full transparency, I am one of the tenants in this building, and so I will be recusing myself from voting on this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like me to continue?
Okay, continues. Thank you.
Okay. Ordinance number 9 is ordinance O-2020-56, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a UDAG grant agreement with Larry Lewis, trustee, and Triad Investment Group LLC for the property located at 1212 and 1218 Central Avenue and declaring an emergency. No action requested until the 3rd. Continue? Okay.
Thank you.
Number 10 is ordinance O-2020-57, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a UDAG grant agreement with Danielle LLC for the property located at 5 South Canal Street and declaring an emergency. No action requested until the 3rd. And finally, for this section is ordinance O-2020-58, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a UDAG grant agreement with MLH Developers LLC for the property located at 1044 Central Avenue and declaring an emergency. No action requested until the 3rd.
Thank you.
And the next matter will be ordinance O-2020-59, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Allied Technical Services Incorporated to complete the August Avenue Lift Station Repair Project and declaring an emergency. No action requested until the 3rd.
Mr. Palahniuk, do you have anything you'd like to add on this one?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of council, this is specifically for the August Avenue lift station. It is a stormwater lift station. It is currently out of service. This would replace a pump and a control panel at a cost of $45,981. Allied Technical Service was the low of 3 bidders. Will be paid for exclusively out of the Stormwater Fund, so we recommend it.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from council?
Number 13 is ordinance O-2020-60, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to to submit an application for the Ohio Department of Natural Resources Paddling Enhancement Grant Program for river access improvements, here for first reading.
Mr. Palahniuk?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of council, we are asking you for application. I think we've talked about in the past that we wanted to make certain that you had a chance to see when we're actually applying for, so that we don't surprise you at some later date if in fact it is awarded. In this case, the application goes to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for a paddling enhancement grant. What that would do is provide us up to $75,000 as a maximum award to put in a ramp for access to the river to assist recreational boating, non-motorized or paddle recreational boating for river access. It is 100% reimbursable. It would be in this case for a location at Germantown Road and I believe my handwriting, which I can't read very well, looks like Carmody Boulevard, east of the bridge. Again, we wanted you to be aware of the fact that that application was being put forward. In this case, there is no local match. It is 100% reimbursable.
And the ramp would be owned and maintained by the city. It wouldn't be deeded over to, I guess it'd be ABS is who I assume that would probably primarily benefit. We would maintain ownership, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And if costs run over the estimated 75,000, then we're on our own for that.
Yes, if it was beyond the grant maximum, that would be correct, yeah, because they do reimburse 100%, but only up to that maximum grant award.
I'd be interested if all goes well with this in a few more years, looking for a second ramp further downriver within the city if they allow us to go back within a certain period of time. I think it's a good grant for us to use.
I'd also like to applaud whoever found this grant for us to even look at applying to, because I think it hits on something we've been trying to get at for a little while, so.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 14 is ordinance O-2020-61, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing an extension of the current contract with Smart Bill Ltd. for the printing and mailing of water bills, here for a first reading.
Mr. Palanick.
Yes, in this case, we would be extending a contract with Smart Bill. This was from a 2019 bid that allowed for multiple years of extension. We'd be extending for one more year for the year 2021, but still at the same price that was provided in 2020 for a not to exceed total price of $120,000. This would be funded through water and sewer funds equally. It amounts to about 18,500 bills per month on a 5-day billing cycle.
I personally appreciated the alternative section that was listed in here. It helped me to really understand whether this was a good choice or not. So thank you very much to the staff who wrote that.
Last matter this evening for your consideration is ordinance O-2020-62, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing an extension of the contract with CBM Managed Services, now known as Summit Food Service, for jail food service in 2021, here for a first reading.
Mr. Palanick.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, members of council, I know that there was some issues and concern about this in the past, and we're here to answer any and all questions that you may have, but essentially what we're asking is to extend the Summit Food Services contract for the provision of jail food service or meals to the inmates for the year 2021. It would be a flat fee of $2,520 per week for any time when there were 50 or less meals being provided, and then over 50 at precisely $2.40 a meal. And of course, the 2520 amounts to, 3 meals a day at $2.40 a meal times 50. Any excess food that would be produced, if there were less than 50, would be donated to local nonprofits. Total cost not to exceed $131,400, does get funded by the general fund. And I would ask either Jake or our police representative to speak to the fact that we do believe that this is the most effective, cost-effective means to do this after quite a bit of research that they went through. So I know, Jake, are you best suited to speak to that, or would we like to have someone from the police department?
Scott will take it.
Okay.
I'll jump up if you.
We looked at a couple alternatives on this. One alternative was to try to transport meals back and forth from the county. That wasn't feasible. It wasn't going to save us any money. This became an issue when we really decreased the number of people in our jail. The food service company was actually losing money because of the way the contract was written. It was just per meal. And you can't pay a cook to come into the jail and cook 5 meals and just pay them $10 and then not lose money. So the change in the contract was partially due to that, and it's still the cheapest alternative to feed our inmates.
Is it possible for us to see a draft of the contract that we would be entering into before we approve it? Okay, that would give me a nice warm fuzzy.
All right, I understand that.
Thank you.
Now, the donation of the food, that was the alternative that we came up with, that, the food would still be provided and we would donate. How is that program going? Can you share anything about that with us?
I don't know. Major Hood is in charge of the jail and was in charge when those changes were being made, and I'm not sure how that's been carried out.
If I could, I do recall we had this conversation at a recent staff meeting, and I don't think there were particularly too many instances where that actually occurred. Is that correct, Jake? Do you recall? It was a relatively small number, I think.
Yeah, I believe the jail population has been up close to the minimum
Yeah.
as of late.
Yeah, we were at 40 today, so the jail population is going back up.
So there hasn't been as much of when we were down to 12 inmates a day back in, when this all began in March and April, so hasn't been as much food there to donate.
Just curious how that got carried out.
Great. The end of our legislation. Okay. So that takes us to the budget presentation. How would we like to go about presenting that?
If we could, I think we'd like to do basically what we did the last time. I'll just come up and with Jake and we'll go through this PowerPoint that we have. We have representatives of both the police and fire departments here. Tonight we're presenting an overview of the public safety portion of our budget. And when we conclude the presentation that we have, we would ask you to pursue any and all questions that you have, either for the fire department or the police department. And then at the conclusion of that, if you still have other questions about any aspects of the budget, then please pursue those as well. So if we could, we're just going to go ahead, if that's okay, and go through this PowerPoint presentation.
Move this. We'll Jake, do it. Go for it.
So as I noted, this is the public safety portion to what you saw last time, which was the remainder of the budget on non-public safety. And of course, as you know, a very large portion of our general fund budget is devoted to public safety, police and fire, one of the most important core services that any community provides. So clearly, if you do anything as a local government, typically what you do is focus a lot of attention on providing basic health, safety, and welfare, and a big portion of that becomes both your police and fire services. So in this budget year 2021, you will note, and we said this last year, that we expect to begin the year with a general fund budget reserve of just over $6,900,000, which represents about 21.3% of the yearly budget. We maintain a policy that says we need to provide at any given time at least 15%. So of course that still remains well within our policy and well above it. We are, however, with the 2021 budget, expecting to use about $1.1 million of a budget reserve to help fund the 2021 budget year. So if we use all of that, then we expect to conclude the year with a general fund reserve of approximately $5,800,000, or about 16.6% of the budget, which again still would leave us above our required 15% policy guideline. In 2021, the actual decrease on our non-public safety personnel, as we noted last time, is about $193,000, or 3.8% of the total. The actual decrease on the public safety personnel side is just under $500,000, or about 2.3% of the total. So on the next sheet, we sort of look at a summary of the actual costs involved in both our police and fire departments and the public safety total as a result. In 2021, the police department budget is down in real terms by $230,930, about a 1.7% decrease. On the fire side, a little bit greater decrease, $483,792, amounting to 4.7%. So in combination, our public safety budget for 2021 as opposed to 2020 is down $714,723, or about 3%. Now, this still does include the 2 new community-oriented police officer positions that are being partially funded by the COPS grant, and it does include a 1% available to provide cost of living increase to the fire collective bargaining unit. Now, that is not yet negotiated or approved, obviously, but knowing that our collective bargaining agreement with the fire union ends with the end of this year, and this budget is for next year, and we budgeted a 1% across the board wage increase for non-union, this basically says that there is an equal amount available to go toward any agreements that may be negotiated with that collective bargaining unit. Within the remaining bargaining units, then, we also list what is already approved for the year 2021, and as well if there's something that extends to 2022. So you can see patrol officers and sergeants are slated to get 3% in 2021, correction officers 2.5% in both 21 and 22, dispatchers and police civilians also 2.5% in both 21 and 22.
Palaniuk?
Yes.
On the 1% cost of living for the fire contract, that sounds to me like that's kind of a placeholder. That would not be in addition to whatever is negotiated at collective bargaining.
Absolutely. It is simply a placeholder to say what we have available is equal to 1% of the overall value. And anything beyond that would be outside of the budget and non-budgeted, and less than that would be under budget. Yes, that's correct. So then if we look to our next sheet, specifically at the Division of Fire, you'll see the various divisions and how those budgets relate to last year. So our fire administration is, for all intents and purposes, status quo, only a $1,240 change, upward. Fire operations, primarily where the decrease is, $478,000, about 5.2%. And then fire training and prevention, again, pretty much status quo, only a change of $6,800. So that change is, as we indicated, about $483,000 less than last year. There is no change in personnel in 21 from 20. Now, the budget book does show an overall increase of 2 positions in the fire operations, but that was because the 2 firefighter EMT positions were actually added in mid-year 2020, and this continues to just carry that number forward. Now, all of the budget reduction is really due to simply going from the 27 to the 26 bi-weekly pays, as well as the savings that we'll be experiencing as a result of retiring employees being replaced with the firefighter EMT positions, which are at a lower salary. We also propose having one of the fire prevention and within fire prevention and training, elevating a lieutenant position to a captain position, and that is included in the budget. And then the budget does assume that 1% cost of living increase that we just described. As far as the fire goals and objectives for 2021, and obviously we'll let the department expound on these at greater length or answer any and all questions about them, but we just wanted to see that obviously they want to continue many of the recommendations that they first put together in their 2017 strategic planning study, and those would include exploring future funding sources and possible alternative sources of revenue, trying to be creative where we can. Some of that may be partnerships with healthcare, some of that may be the addition of fees where we don't currently provide them. Want to develop a comprehensive program to enhance employee safety and well-being, always a very important issue within first responder community where they're really putting their life in jeopardy every time they go out on a call. Want to evaluate our current facilities to always improve efficiency, safety, and well-being wherever we can. Developing a recruitment strategy that meets the needs of the division as evidenced by an increase in the number of applicants, and that is a big issue in the fire profession these days, as well as in the police department, becoming harder and harder to recruit, particularly competitively when it comes to compensation and benefits. Also want to improve the annual employee retention rate, and that really speaks to the last goal as well. Also continue implementing the results of the 2018 deployment and staffing analysis as conducted by the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association. And that would include the efforts to increase daily minimum staffing to 19 personnel daily and optimal 21 personnel. And of course, that's really about resources. When and if we can find them, then we have the ability to continue in that direction. And if not, it becomes very difficult. Look to promote one training and prevention support lieutenant to a captain in fire prevention. We had noted that earlier. Want to develop a facility improvement plan that will include the location and the design of the ultimate replacement of our 4 fire stations, which in every case have reached beyond their useful life and are certainly substandard at best. Wish to explore the feasibility of adopting a false alarm and a nuisance alarm ordinance as well as we move through the year. Additional goals and objectives for the fire department, as you see noted, like to continue cooperation with other key organizations and city staff on the community response to the opioid overdoses and reduce those incidents by 10% within the calendar year. Like to identify and apply for any capital grants that will allow us to purchase and replace both newer and older equipment. That would include the air quality monitors, cardiac monitoring equipment, and capnography devices. And I'm going to ask the fire department what a capnography device is, because I don't honestly know. So hopefully.
It's just measurement of blood gases in the body when you're doing resuscitation.
There you go. Certainly developing a fire administration succession plan to prepare future leadership. Many people in the fire department, just like in public administration, have a lot of gray hair. We're baby boomers, and as time goes by, if we're not preparing for future leadership, we're going to be in difficult straits. So it becomes really important in the fire service, just like everywhere else. And then talking about adopting fees for fire inspections, foster care inspections, fire extinguisher training, and fees for fire departments to be on site, like fireworks. Many departments across the country provide a lot of different services on a fee basis. We've done very little of that, and as we struggle for resources, I think we have to seriously take a look at some of these things, particularly when they are specific to individual businesses and they take away from the ability to continue to provide normal citizen services as a result. Also want to look at implementing the radio replacement program. So again, we're going to have the fire department speak more directly to any and all of those issues once we get through this overview. Taking a look at the division of police, again, overview on the finances, you're going to find that most of our changes are largely as a result of 2 things. We have 26 biweekly pays instead of 27, which is nice for the budget. And a number of retirements allow us in many cases to decrease the overall cost because the newer officers are paid in effect less than those longer tenured retiring. So as a result, you'll see a change in administration by 1.5% decrease. Criminal investigations go down by 9.3%. And then uniform patrol, where of course most of the money is being spent, decrease of $154,000, or about 2.3%. Narcotics, relative status quo, a 0.1% change upward. Police services, relatively status quo, 1.4% change upward. Police and fire dispatch, $32,000 increase, or 2.3%. And the jail management by $66,000 increase, or 5%. So in total, the 2021 Police Department budget comes in at $13,252,138, a $230,930 decrease, or 1.7% when measured against last year's budget. On the police side, as far as goals and objectives are concerned, certainly always crime and calls for service being reduced. It's critical. Wanting to continue to reduce those Part 1 crimes as well as CFS. Developing the community-oriented policing unit much more so than perhaps we have in the past, and really getting it entrenched into the culture of the department to increase both neighborhood watch programs, assist in summons service, and really begin to focus more on community relations and relationships. Reorganize the administration structure that would eliminate a deputy chief position and add a patrol officer in its place. And probably with the first retirement, you'll see that hopefully occur. Begin the accreditation process for CALEA, as well as completing that process within the calendar year 2021. Look to continue to expand our chronic nuisance ordinance to address nuisance rental property complaints. Reduce the use of force situations, as well as continue the reduction of citizen complaints by training personnel to improve employee job performance and learn new trends in law enforcement, cop de-escalation, and intelligence-led policing. And of course, as we see so much of the protests across the country and the concerns about the way policing is done and calls for the so-called defunding of police, I think the concerns become simply about the way that we do policing, that there are oftentimes better, more strategic ways that are more community-oriented, that are more relatable to citizens, and I think that's what we're talking about. No effort to defund or to reduce police efforts or operations, hopefully actually to make them better, to make them more consistent, and to recognize that in many cases, de-escalation can occur and it can serve the benefit of the police department. Also begin the high-intensity drug traffic area process for an increase in state and federal funding for narcotics operations. That is kind of the basic overview. Obviously, you probably have a number of questions or comments or concerns about either of these departments and or ultimately about the overall budget. So with that, we're going to open it up to questions and certainly allow our representatives of both police and fire to come up here and answer any of the questions that you have.
I had a question. Last year, we put in the budget, it was either 1 or 2 traffic officers. And I think that got put on the sidelines when the COVID stuff hit and there was some issues with trying to find the right candidate. I'm not sure, Mr. Reeves or Mr. Palaniuk, did they ever make it in this year? And if not, are we looking at it for 21?
We are still looking at it. They did not make it.
Would it be possible to go ahead and come up to the dais, because I don't think it's picking up what you're saying, unfortunately, for everyone else. Thank you very much. No problem. Get your extra steps in for the day.
I need the steps anyway. They did not make it in this year. We're still looking in it for next year. COVID did hit us pretty bad. Who knows that letting all the criminals out of jail will cause an increase in crime. But we have had a very busy year at the police department. We've had a lot of illnesses in the police department. The chief is off sick today. So no, it didn't make it in last year for mainly COVID reasons. But we are still planning on doing that next year.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Did the situation with COVID seem to influence the amount of applicants or interest in those positions as well, or just the ability to fill them?
I think the main reason we don't have as many applicants now as we used to is the national trend is that policing is not as popular as it used to be. Like when I took the test to become a patrol officer, there were 300 people in the room taking the test. Our last test, there might have been 30 or 40. So policing is not as popular as it used to be, and I think that's the main reason. I don't think COVID had anything to do with that, other than the recent riots and protests. But we've enjoyed a tremendous amount of support in our community, the police department. So we're very thankful for that.
If I could, I had a conversation with Chief Burke about this very recently. And we had noted earlier that the goal within this budget is when we see the first retirement within a deputy chief to actually reorganize that such that we turn that into a patrol officer, and that patrol officer position, is there a problem? The patrol officer position would be a traffic officer, the first one that gets filled.
And I am retiring, so that's definitely going to happen.
And I didn't do it for that purpose, I guess. I'm sorry.
That's why we were laughing.
But I'm sorry.
While we've got you, I got a couple other police-related questions before you, unless you want to get more steps and come on back, I'm fine with that too. The high-intensity drug trafficking area, can you speak to that and what that is?
HIDA, that's a designation that we get from the federal government. There's 2 HIDAs in the area. The Butler County Burn Unit's a HIDA, and so is the Warren County Drug Task Force a HIDA. There's an advantage for us becoming a HIDA, but it's a process that's, there's a little bit of politics involved in it. Because we're in both Butler and Warren counties, some of those both of those units might claim our statistics as far as drug arrest goes. So it's kind of a touchy subject because we like collaborating and working with other agencies. So the process of becoming a HIDA ourselves could be difficult.
Okay. Is that designation anything that affects like residential or business ratings, or when it comes to economic development, whether it would have a negative, positive impact? You see where I'm going with this?
I see where you're going with it. As far as I know, it doesn't, but it opens up some money to us from the
Okay.
government. Yeah, there would be, a public relations reason why not to get it. But,
I'm all for trying to improve the problem. I just also don't want to, this also create stepping on our own toes,
Yeah.
economic development wise, if it had any impact in that or the schools in any fashion. Just look at, what the best option is for the city and how we do get better in the end.
right.
Yeah.
For us financially, it's good if we get HIDA designation, but I understand your concern.
And it wouldn't prevent you from working with Warren County or Byrne.
No, we work with them now.
But HIDAs can work together.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely worth some bigger discussions on that topic, I'm sure we can. Okay. I had another, I was looking at the clothing allowance on 61. It was for, I believe, administrative personnel within the police services budget on, I'm not sure, so it's, I don't, Jake, maybe this is something you could pull up as far as exactly the page I'm looking at and help translate what I'm talking about. So I have it on page 3-61, and I got the number of $1,100 per person for more of administrative roles receiving clothing allowances in the $1,100 a year range. Does that seem accurate? Did I pull that from somewhere?
Specifically on 361, that is police services, which they're in a police civilian contract, so that's per their negotiated contract in that specific instance. But there are uniform allowances within police administration. I believe that'd be page 357, $4,700 total, and that is for the chief and the major. It's essentially for lack of a better description, a Me Too of them getting
Right,
what
for
the
their
union
uniform,
gets
yeah.
as well.
My question was, do we have clothing allowances in here for, say, dispatch or admin personnel who are basically at the police building all day long? And are we giving a high value of clothing allowance for that as well? Is that an area where we could shave off a little bit?
Most of it within the police department, other than the, what would be considered uniformed personnel, so the chief, the majors, all the other uniform allowances are contract negotiated. So it's based
Okay,
upon a
I
union
wondered about that
contract.
part too.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not really up for changing or
Correct.
adjusting. Okay.
Right.
That answers about 4 of my questions, so thank you. I had a question about jail management, the other operating costs on 3-63. Would it be possible to, and this is not at this moment, but just see, first of all, if we know what the examples are that what fall into that part of the budget, and if it might be possible to just see all the examples from 2019 of what goes into the other operating costs for the jail?
We'll have to get you examples to give you
Sure.
specifics, but that line item in general is basically money spent on different materials for the jail, such as new mattresses. That's the one example that's coming to me. There's other things that we purchase out of that line item, but that's the big one that's coming to me. And that is all offset. We increased that line item over the last few years based upon commissary sales. So we're utilizing that increase in commissary sales to allow the jail to purchase some of those items that are necessary. But yeah, we can certainly send out
Okay.
what was purchased in 2019 and what's been purchased this year.
Sure, thank you. It just helped me better understand what all is in that. Appreciate it. Does anyone else have any police budgetary questions? Well, okay. Any other questions from council in general, fire budget or other?
I had a non-public safety.
Sure.
Are we to that point? Traded an email with Mr. Burton earlier this week, and was just wanted to provide some feedback. If we end up looking at revising the property tax values higher, there's been some reports that Mr. Reynolds might be looking at higher values than what we might have anticipated, and I greatly appreciate the conservative approach. If we do, I'd advocate that we look at increasing our local dollars on paving. That's just my 2 cents on that. So thank you for the opportunity to look into that.
I had 2 fire-related questions. The false alarm ordinance, I saw that listed in there as a goal. I was just curious what that would include. I have an idea in my head, but I don't want to run with that.
Good to see you,
One of the things we've
Yeah, it's
never.
good to see you, by the way. Thanks for joining
It's good to
us.
be here. It's good to be back. I feel great.
Good.
One of the things we have never done is charged for false alarms. I think in the Division of Police, they have a fee that they charge going out for false alarms. Well, that's one thing we've just never done in the fire department in the city of Middletown. And it's one thing with that, we're going to start looking at doing fees for applications for fireworks, and fees for doing home fire inspections, and possibly get into fees for re-fire inspections of businesses.
I was surprised to see foster care inspections on there. I didn't even know our fire department
Yep.
did that.
When somebody is going to be a foster care, their home has to receive a fire inspection by one of our fire inspectors.
I got it. So it comes from the fire
Yeah.
perspective of,
Yep.
okay.
And we've just traditionally in the city of Middletown, we've gone out and done those as a service, a non-chargeable service.
So would that be true in an adoption situation where they didn't have full custody until 6 months? You'd have to do it on those as well?
No,
No?
no,
Okay.
just foster care.
Okay.
Those are the only 2 that I had for you.
Is that it? That was easy.
Thank you very
That's
much.
something that all of our most of our surrounding departments are charging for.
Not around here, they
No.
don't. It's more of a thing you see out west and out east in some of your larger cities.
I have other questions about the budget, but I don't think they're big picture that I need to have answered right away. I can email a few of them out. And
That'd be fine. Oh, yeah, however you'd like to pursue, we're more than happy to do that.
right. Any other comments from staff or council?
We just sincerely appreciate the opportunity. Obviously, it's been a really difficult year, not a lot of certainty at any given time, so putting it together has been a challenge, and I think all the staff has really risen to that challenge. And if anything, I guess we're kind of optimistic. It's worked out reasonably well. Gotten a lot of assistance through the CARES Act. We're being very creative to use that as many ways possible. You saw a couple of those examples tonight, and we will continue to make certain that every one of those dollars are used to the fullest extent possible. So we just thank you for your support and allowing us to continue to provide these services. So thank you.
I will make one comment since I see probably all the department heads. I know this has been a moving target since March, and the picture seems to have gotten a little bit better. So thank you all for putting in the work to make those numbers work. Even though it's been a moving target, this has probably been one of your more difficult years to do the budget. So thanks for being flexible.
Absolutely. Our citizens thank you as well. So. All right. Well, with that, then we will adjourn our meeting until the 3rd of November at 5:30 p.m., which is Election Day, I believe. So we'll see you back in council chambers at 5:30 on November 3rd. Until then, blue skies over Middletown.